The Christmas of 1995 in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, was draped in dread, not cheer. In a living room where decorations felt like props in a grim play, Monica Lukasavige faced a camera. The focus wasn't on the tree or scattered gifts, but on her expression, a hollow mask of sustained anguish, and on the stark message printed on her shirt, "Find Jessyca." Her 13-year-old daughter had vanished over 3 months prior, on September 15th, after leaving for a scheduled weekend with her father. The official narrative, supported by a single handwritten letter delivered to the family, was that Jessyca had chosen to run away. Authorities and some in the community were prepared to accept this, to file her case among the countless missing teens who flee trouble at home. But for Monica, every instinct screamed that this letter, supposedly from her child, was a sinister forgery of the heart. She recognized the penmanship as her daughter's, yet the cadence, the phrasing, felt alien and coached. It was a discordant note in a mother's intimate understanding of her child's voice. That letter, meant to pacify and misdirect, instead became the first piece of evidence in Monica's personal investigation, galvanizing her certainty that Jessyca was not a runaway, but a victim, and launching a pursuit that would defy the despair of 100 empty days. The true origin of the tragedy predated the disappearance by years, rooted in a betrayal of trust that unfolded in the most vulnerable of spaces. In 1991, Stephen Oliver moved next door to Monica's family, presenting himself as a friendly neighbor, and later securing a position as a teacher's aide at the local elementary school. He recognized Jessyca's sensitivity and talent for writing, using it as a lure to single her out under the guise of mentorship in a school club. This calculated focus immediately raised Monica's alarms, leading her to firmly, if politely, cut off contact. Oliver's subsequent move directly across the street from the home of Jessyca's father, Dale, was a chilling maneuver that confirmed Monica's deepest fears. It was a geographic declaration of intent, placing him back in the girl's orbit beyond her mother's reach. Despite Monica's desperate pleas, Dale dismissed her concerns, viewing Oliver as a benign, helpful figure. This division in parental perception created a fatal blind spot. Oliver, now armed with sanctioned access during visitation weekends, was free to operate, his public persona as a caring educator perfectly masking the private predation that had, unbeknownst to anyone, already begun to steal Jessyca's childhood in isolated rooms and under dire threats. Behind the facade of mentorship, a brutal regime of control was already in place. From as early as the 3rd grade, Stephen Oliver had been systematically isolating, grooming, and sexually abusing Jessyca. He weaponized her innate desire to please and her familial love, constructing a prison built on fear. He convinced her that she was fundamentally flawed, unpretty, unloved, and unworthy of anything but his twisted attention. The most powerful lock on this prison was his explicit, repeated threat. If she ever told anyone, he would murder her family members and then kill her. To a child, this was not a bluff, but a certain prophecy. Jessyca internalized this terror, believing that her silence was the sole barrier protecting her mother and brothers from death. The abuse created a profound psychological split. The vibrant girl her family knew coexisted with a captive self, burdened with shame and carrying a catastrophic secret. This hidden reality made the eventual kidnapping not a sudden abduction, but the culmination of a long campaign. When the weekend of September 16th arrived, and her father told her Oliver was taking her to meet a publisher, Jessyca's hesitation was overridden by years of conditioned obedience and the ingrained habit of masking her terror to protect those she loved. The promised trip to Madison was a ruse that evaporated the moment Jessyca awoke in the moving car, finding herself bound. Oliver's demeanor shed its last pretense as he spewed venomous declarations. She was worthless, unloved, and would never see her family again. He introduced their new identities. They were now Dave and Cindy Johnson, a father and daughter. His plan leveraged at a critical vulnerability of the era, the anonymity of 1995 air travel. With no requirement for photo, ID for domestic flights, and minimal security checkpoints, a man with a knife could easily escort a terrified child onto a plane. At the airport, Oliver kept the blade pressed to Jessyca's back, a hidden threat in the bustling terminal. She scanned the faces of strangers, praying for a moment of eye contact, a question, any shred of intervention. None came. The boarding process asked for nothing but their tickets. As the plane ascended, it severed Jessyca's last tangible connection to her known world. This journey was not just a physical relocation from Wisconsin to Texas. It was a transit from the realm of the searchable into a void. For investigators who would soon find Oliver's abandoned car in Kansas City, the trail ended at the ticket counter, a portal through which Dave and Cindy Johnson had vanished without a bureaucratic trace. Their destination was a budget motel in Houston, a place Oliver selected for its transience and lack of scrutiny. Here, he perfected Jessica's transformation into Cindy, cutting and dyeing her hair. To the motel staff, he presented a crafted sob story. They were a grieving family, moving south after a tragic car accident that claimed the mother and a twin sibling. This narrative earned not just a room, but sympathy, ensuring staff would view any sadness or withdrawal from the girl as part of her trauma, not a cry for help. Paranoia soon drove them to a second motel, where they were placed in a room within a closed, renovated wing, a decision that created a soundproof cell. The door locked from the outside, with Oliver always in possession of the key. Inside, Jessica faced squalor, dust, cockroaches, and the oppressive silence of isolation. She found a rotary phone and, in a moment of desperate hope, tried to dial home, only to discover Oliver had rewired it, scrambling the numbers. This act was a masterstroke of psychological torture. It presented the illusion of a lifeline, a working phone in her prison, only to prove it was a useless prop, demonstrating his total control over her environment and systematically crushing her hope of self-rescue. Within the motel room, Oliver engaged in a deliberate campaign to erase Jessyca Mullenberg and solidify Cindy Johnson. This went beyond using a fake name. It was a sustained assault on her identity. He denied her food, calling her fat and ugly, making sustenance a reward for compliance. He subjected her to repeated physical and sexual violence, tying her to the bed for hours. Most insidiously, he continually reinforced the narrative that her family did not want her, that they had stopped looking, that she was forgotten and loved only by him in his distorted way. The brainwashing worked on a profound level. The constant barrage of degradation, coupled with complete isolation from any counter-narrative, began to warp her perception of reality. The mental images of her mother's face, her brother's laughter, the landscape of home, these began to fade and blur, like photographs left in the sun. As days bled into weeks, the courageous girl who held on to memories started to doubt their truth. The persona of Cindy, the unwanted, grieving girl, started to feel like the only reality that had ever existed. Oliver's goal was not just to hide a child, but to dismantle and replace her psyche, creating a captive who would not even recognize her own name if called. While Jessica languished in Houston, her family in Wisconsin waged a public war against despair. Refusing to accept the runaway theory, Monica and her brother Steve mobilized their community and leveraged every available media tool. They blanketed the Midwest with posters, secured local and national news coverage, and crucially, gained the attention of America's Most Wanted. The show's host, John Walsh, whose own son was a victim of abduction, brought a powerful empathy and a vast audience to the case. This national spotlight transformed the search from a local missing persons case into a public manhunt for Stephen Oliver. The family's relentless activism kept pressure on law enforcement and, most importantly, circulated Jessica's face and story into millions of homes across the country. They worked with trucking companies to put her photo on billboards and semi-trailers, creating a moving network of awareness. This was not a passive waiting game. It was an aggressive campaign fueled by a mother's certainty and a family's love. Their efforts created a nationwide net, one whose success hinged on a single critical moment: the right pair of eyes seeing their broadcast and connecting it to a suspicious pair living down the hall. Amidst the psychological torment, a single resilient thread kept Jessica tethered to her true self, the memory of her mother's promise. Monica had once told her children that if anything ever happened to them, she would move heaven and earth to find them. In her darkest moments, when Oliver's voice told her she was abandoned, Jessica would cling to this mantra. It was a quiet, internal rebellion against her conditioning. She would pray, not with the certainty of rescue, but with a desperate effort to project her love and feel a connection across the impossible distance. This was not a concrete plan for escape, but a spiritual lifeline. It prevented her from surrendering completely to the Cindy identity. While the specifics of home faded, the foundational feeling of being her mother's daughter, of being loved, retained a ghostly presence in her heart. This intangible force, the echo of a parent's unconditional vow, became her core defense. It countered the erasure and provided a sliver of mental space that Oliver's abuse could not fully colonize, preserving a fragile seed of self that would be crucial for her eventual recovery. The nationwide net cast by American America's Most Wanted, finally caught a lead on December 28th. A woman in Houston, having seen the broadcast, contacted the show. She reported that a man and girl living in her motel as Dave and Cindy Johnson matched the descriptions, and their story felt off. This tip shot through the FBI, from the show's hotline to Agent Jerry Southworth in Wisconsin, and directly to the Houston field office. That night, FBI agents converged on the isolated motel room. The pounding on the door jolted Jessyca from sleep, with Oliver hissing threats to stay silent. When the agents entered, they found a malnourished girl who, in a testament to Oliver's brainwashing, identified herself as Cindy Johnson. The rescue was physically complete, but psychologically, Jessyca remained captive. At the FBI office, agents gently worked to reach the child behind the alias, showing her school photos. The breakthrough came with a phone call. Hearing her mother's voice real, immediate, and filled with a love that contradicted every lie she'd endured, acted as a key. The fabricated identity of Cindy shattered, and in that moment, Jessyca Mullenberg truly returned, sobbing into the phone as she remembered who she was and who had been searching for her all along. Jessica's return home was not an endpoint, but the start of a grueling new journey. She faced immediate physical trials, requiring multiple surgeries to repair damage from Oliver's beatings. The psychological scars ran deeper. She endured cruel bullying from peers who, failing to comprehend her trauma, asked, "Why didn't you just run?" In June 1996, she confronted her abuser again, delivering crucial testimony at his trial that secured his 40-year prison sentence without parole. This act of facing him in court was her first powerful step in reclaiming her voice. She channeled her experience into academic focus, graduating college with honors in psychology and criminal justice. Defying medical predictions, she built a family of her own. Today, Jessyca has transformed her pain into purpose. She is a dedicated advocate, speaking to students about abuse prevention and survival, and offering a potent symbol of hope to families of the missing. Her story is no longer one of a victim, defined by 104 days of darkness, but of a survivor who, with relentless support, reclaimed her narrative, proving that even the most calculated evil cannot erase the human spirit's capacity to heal and find light again.